Hello everybody and welcome to another amazing video of DIY investing. We are moments away from the biggest breakout and price discovery type event we've ever seen in crypto history. For the last 2.5 years, we've seen institutions continue to buy altcoins as well as Bitcoin. The ETFs have paved the way for real institutional growth and demand, and now we finally have this wave built right in time for retail investors to really start driving up the values of our assets. This is the best cycle that we're ever going to see for price appreciation, and I've continued to maintain that same belief. Now that we're just entering Q4, all of our markets are now breaking all-time highs and entering price discovery, following exactly to the same path that all of our prior cycles have. Today, I'm going to break down some very important charts that I want you guys to be very aware about, because understanding these is going to put you ahead of the rest of the market and allow you to make some of the biggest gains over the rest of this bull market. I have a lot of confidence that this is going to be the biggest, most profitable cycle, and it's all going to happen in such a short period of time that if you're not ready or you're sitting on the fence, you're going to miss out entirely, and that's something that you can't afford to do in this cycle. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you found any value in this video, please do me a favor, hit that like, comment, and subscribe button. Without further ado, let's jump right into this amazing video today. Now, starting off this video, we're going to go through Bitcoin, we're going to look at Ethereum, and then we're going to be sharing you guys some very important charts that are going to kind of reflect the overall altcoin sentiment in the entire market. The reason I wanted to start with Bitcoin is because when I'm looking at Bitcoin's price, knowing that we're so close to the ending of this bull market based off 4-year cycles, understanding how powerful Q4 actually is at the very ending of that 3-year bull market, we're right there at the exact moment of time that we really needed to see. Everything we've needed to have happen for the bulls has played out, and I do think that this is just kind of the early signal that we have a lot more price appreciation ahead. This entire cycle has been us just building and accumulating, getting ready for an eventual blow off top. Now, one of the things that it reminds me so much about that I wanted to jump in here to start today's video is really just kind of analyzing this breakout and retest that we just had. Because for the most part, we haven't really had any sort of significant upside potential, even though Bitcoin has done everything we needed to see. We saw the breakout of the all-time high and this range high resistance from the top of our last cycle. Remember when we consolidated and rejected below for about 4 to 6 months right during this period? And then when we finally got that breakout, all we did was make a small little push higher, and then we came right back down to retest that range. And from that retest, we've seen upward price appreciation, but for the most part, it's not super parabolic. We've seen this little choppy type price action as we're just more or less growing on this parabolic trend. But in my opinion, this is where the real parabolic trend starts, where the real upside potential starts. Because what this looks like to me is really identical to the very first cycle we ever saw gold do. And if we come over here and actually take a look at gold, this was when gold really started to rocket during the 1970s and 80s. We saw this big run in gold, and we ended up peaking here at about 1974 and starting this multi-year bear market before a real blow-off top started. And it reminds me a lot of what we're seeing today inside of Bitcoin. This over here would basically be the same as the 65 and 69K top for Bitcoin. If we remember, this would have been 65K when we had that first big run. Then we kind of made this little double top where we barely made a new all-time high. That would have been 69K for Bitcoin. And then obviously this whole downtrending market would have been our 1-year bear market that Bitcoin went through. It's all pretty much right here. Here's the 2 peaks, and then here's that big sell-off. And if you notice, as the new bull market starts, we start making these little higher highs and higher lows as we're building this new uptrend, getting more and more parabolic before the blow off top. And what I find interesting is once the market of Bitcoin broke out and retested, that is really where we would expect to see the market pick up the most. And it looks almost identical to what we saw over here with gold. With gold, it was still following the same kind of events where it was just a lot of higher highs and higher lows, you know, pretty much just following all the way through until we got up to these range highs right over in here. We can see though, once we got to the range highs at about $195 to $200 per ounce, we got this big breakout and then instantly came back down to retest that same level. That would have been our same point as right over here with Bitcoin, where it made that first breakout into new all-time highs, retested, and then that was really where we started to get that confirmation that, you know, Bitcoin is a lot more bullish than people think. The same thing happened here with gold. We come right back down to those prior all-time highs, retest those, and then we make this bounce and kind of follow a similar consolidation where we come back up to these range highs, spend a little bit of time just kind of chopping around that same range high, But what's important is to notice what follows shortly after that breakout. This led us into a significant blow off top inside of gold. Now, I'm not going to say that Bitcoin is going to go up 10x in one big move, but gold going from $235 per ounce all the way up here to about $870, that was a really significant type of breakout, and this is what you would expect to see inside of a parabolic rally. What I find interesting is that Bitcoin from our last cycle to where we're at today looks very much identical to the gold cycle from basically when we peaked at 74 all the way until the blow off top that happened in 1980. And I think that we're following a very similar type of growth curve. And we can see all of that playing out right here in real time. What we've seen so far is the breakout and the retest. And now we're just getting that choppy price action right before the entire market goes super parabolic. And that's why I say, guys, I'm not going to be the least bit surprised to see Bitcoin valued at $200,000 to $250,000 per Bitcoin. And I think that all of that's going to happen in one big move. All of this was just the accumulation, right? And even though we accumulated and really got, outside of new all-time highs before any sort of parabolic rally, I think a lot of that just goes to show how much accumulation we've had from the institutional level. This entire move has been us just consistently maintaining higher highs and higher lows. Even though we've made it into price discovery, we've yet to see any sort of significant blow off top. What I believe happens is the same thing that happened with gold right over in here. We are right here at the forefront before this massive new all-time high comes, before the real bulk of our price discovery takes place. This is the most important time in our cycle. Now, if we come over here and actually take a look at ETH, this is going to give us an idea as far as what is happening in the altcoin level, right? Now, what I've maintained for the last couple years has been that Ethereum itself is just following what Bitcoin did in its last cycle. And I've always said that, even going back to this cycle over in here, it's pretty much the exact same cycle that Bitcoin did in 2017. Ethereum always syncs up to Bitcoin. It's always following the same turn of events as what Bitcoin does. Even into the bear market cycles, we still see a lot of the same price appreciation and consolidation. It's all following the same fractals. Now, if we're looking at this current cycle, I don't find it coincidental that Ethereum is once again just repeating almost the exact same fractal that Bitcoin did in its last cycle. Every single time, Ethereum is one cycle behind Bitcoin, and it's whatever that cycle did prior that it ends up sinking to the most. In this case, it was the COVID capitulation. We see the same thing happen over in here, where Bitcoin peaked at the top of that 2017 cycle. We come all the way back down, make that rounded bottom formation. This leads us into the lower high, and the whole time we're really just kind of ping-ponging inside of a triangle formation, right? The same thing happened here with Bitcoin, even leading into the final capitulation, where we came all the way back down to retest that main trend line. Ethereum did this, but it was just following the same fractal that Bitcoin did in the cycle prior. We can see that as indicated up here, where Bitcoin kind of went through this first little lower high. It consolidated up here in this range. It ended up breaking down and finding support. Same thing happened here. It made one more attempt at a breakout. This ended up being a fake out, and it actually happened a little bit bigger inside of the Ethereum chart. This ultimately led us into that final capitulation that we see here. And I've been telling you guys that what Ethereum was going to do, it was going to rally all the way back up. It was going to break from this downtrend and retest it. And that was going to give us our spring-loaded bounce before we get that big new all-time high and true price discovery. And everything that we've seen from that point is pretty much played out, where Ethereum rocketed right back into this range high. We ended up breaking out of it, retesting it as what's indicated over the last couple weeks. We had this little dip. It was instantly bought up, and we're already back at those range highs. Ethereum today is no different than Bitcoin in the last cycle, when Bitcoin was at 10K before it went all the way up to 65,000. Now, if we're going to be following kind of the same price targets this cycle, which I do think that we're going to generally do, we can come all the way from the beginning of the last cycle for Bitcoin, all the way to the top of 2017, and back to where the bear market bottomed. And this is going to give us our fib targets for what we could expect to see with Ethereum today. Now, in the last cycle, Bitcoin ended up peaking in between the 3618 and the 2618. So if we take that same formula and we apply it to where Ethereum is at today, that gives us at least a rough idea of where we could be targeting Ethereum for this blow off top. Because what I think happens is Ethereum is going to break out, and it's all going to go up in one big move. I don't think we're going to get this double top type price action. If we do, it's going to happen inside of just this first little move right here, and it won't be quite as big as what we saw. It's going to all just kind of happen like this, where we see one big lift off in ETH. If the double top happens, it's probably a really short-lived one like that. I don't think it's going to last very long, but we're going to be looking at pretty much the ending of this year as being our cycle top for ETH. And all of this is going to happen in one big breakout, which is why if you're really just waiting on the sidelines with cash, you're probably going to miss out on the entire move. And it's unfortunate, but that's just the way most people get. Right at the best opportune time to make money, most people are out of the market. And what we can see is if we follow what Bitcoin did, we're pretty much looking in between this 2 to 3618 region, which is going to be all the way up here at the minimum of about $15,000 per ETH. So if you can imagine ETH going from 4,600 all the way to 15,000 as we're just getting towards the ending of this year, you know that it's going to be a very impulsive time. And I've been maintaining that same belief. I still believe that altcoins are going to run. I still believe that Bitcoin is going to run into new all-time highs. We see two different cycles perfectly playing out with Bitcoin between the gold cycle before its blow off top and where Bitcoin's at right now. And the same thing can be said about ETH. ETH is just following what Bitcoin did in the last cycle. And what we remember happening after Bitcoin broke out of that downtrend was pretty much sheer vertical price action all the way to the top of 65K. The same thing is going to happen here with Ethereum. And we have multiple charts that can kind of show us this. This is the total value locked of all chain. Any bit of money on chain that's being locked into smart contracts is basically an average of this chart right here. The reason this is important is because if you're locking money into smart contracts, that shows real growth. It shows real volume. Anybody can go buy and sell an altcoin and that'll show a reflection of volume in the chart. But realistically, the TVL shows people that are actively participating on chain. It's a better reflection for understanding when altcoins are going to run. And we can see that we've made a new all-time high. We've broken out and we're really just kind of consolidating here inside of this bull flag before we end up going higher. And we're right at the resistance. In my opinion, once this really starts to lift off and goes into price discovery, you're going to see everything on chain blow up. This chart is a reflection of volume. I always tell you guys, volume precedes price. So whenever you're seeing charts that reflect the volume and how many people are actively participating on chain, those are going to be the best outliers to follow, because once they break out, it really shows that people are actively trading on chain. And if you want any of your altcoins to pump, chances are you have a lot of on-chain altcoins because the ecosystem of crypto has grown so much and there is multiple layer 1s and layer 2s. We want to see this chart break out because that shows people are actively participating. Now that we've made a new all-time high, literally everything we need to see play out is playing out. Ethereum is broken out. Bitcoin is broken out. The total value locked is making a new all-time high. These are all reflections as far as where sentiment is heading, and I'm telling you guys right now, it's going into a big blow off top that's going to be life-changing for those that are prepared. Coming over here and taking a look at the total market cap 3, we're going to be looking at the total market cap 3 to finish up, and then we're also going to be looking at the total market cap 3 excluding stable coins. Now, if we're looking at the total market cap 3, I've been telling you guys how this is a big cup and handle formation. And we've been in the side of this handle for the last few months, and we've been waiting on a breakout of new all-time highs. We have successfully made a breakout into new all-time highs. This little candle that you see right here, this is showing the sentiment. It is showing that we've made a new all-time high. And we're moments away from the finalization of this pattern, which is ultimately the blow off top. That's the whole point of the cup and handle. You had the big cup, you had the top of the cup, you had the basin, you had the next high and going into the handle. Once that handle and the top of the resistance of the cup is broken, you pretty much see the market just go straight up. That's the way that these cup and handles play out. The only thing is, when we come over here and we look at the same chart excluding stable coins, we notice that we have yet to truly break out quite yet. I think that's ultimately a reflection of the stability of the stable coins, but we're not that far off. I think that when we really start to see altcoins break out, it's going to be whenever this chart breaks out as well. Now, shout out to Mac on Twitter for actually bringing this to my attention. I was talking about this chart a lot, which is the total 3, because this is really all of the altcoins excluding Bitcoin and Ethereum. So all of the other altcoins, whenever ETH and Bitcoin lead, it's really alt season when all of the other ones lead with it. And we've yet to see that for the most part. Now that this is breaking out, I think that this is the early signal that that's about to happen. On-chain activity is about to take off. The TVL's already made a new all-time high. So now that we're seeing the total 3 breaking out and making a new all-time high, that's really the signal the altcoins are ready to move. But I think that there can be a little bit of a lag. Notice how this chart is still below resistance. It'll probably run back up into resistance and make a little pullback. and then it'll probably start to break out. So during this period here, I expect that there can still be a little bit of an underperformance in the total three, mainly just because Bitcoin and ETH are going to lead the way. They're going to make their big breakouts, and generally that suppresses a lot of the other altcoins in the market. However, that doesn't last very long. And once that's finished, you generally are going to see these pick up really quickly in a much more heated pace, I guess you could say. Doesn't change anything. All of these charts are the same. I just think that there's going to be a little period of time where Bitcoin and ETH outperform the rest of the altcoins, but that's to be expected. Those are the drivers of new liquidity. Everything's liquidity bonded to Bitcoin and ETH. So once Bitcoin and ETH really start to break out, it's only a matter of time before the rising tide lifts all ships together. Every chart we need to see for true breakout and price discovery is playing out. All of our major indexes are in price discovery. Bitcoin's moments away from completing this blow off top to wrap up our cycle. We come over here and look at ETH. ETH is doing the exact same thing that Bitcoin did in its last cycle before our massive blow off top took place. There's no difference in the price action. It's almost scary how identical both of these charts look. And then when you're talking about the TVL and the crypto total market cap 3 breaking out, literally everything that we needed to see is playing out for Q4 to be the most bullish price discovery event we've ever seen in crypto, paired with institutions, paired with retail that we're about to start to see FOMO into these cryptos. It's an exciting time, and I'm really happy to have you guys a part of it. Now, with that being said, guys, if you found any value in this video, please do me a favor. Hit the like, comment, and subscribe button. If you guys want to see what we're trading, anything that we're going to be buying, selling, and most importantly, when we take profits at the end of this cycle, you guys definitely need to join my group. This is going to be the most profitable time to be a part of it, because this is the moment where all of the altcoins are going to run, and they're going to run in a very short period of time. So if you're not in the group, you're probably just going to miss out. Most importantly, you're going to want to be in the group, because when we take profits, knowing when to lock up your profits is the most important part of crypto, because you can sell too early and still be better off than the person who sells too late. So that's what I'm really going to make sure that we do this cycle. We're going to be out at the top. We're going to be buying back in at the bottom of this bear market. And if you guys want to be knowing how I'm going to be doing that, how I'm planning to structure my trades moving forward, most importantly, when we're shorting this market all the way back down, links are in the description to go ahead and join my VIP. With that being said, guys, I appreciate the support. I will catch you guys in the next one. As always, peace out.